Click the links to the alternative video platforms. Join channel, become a member, support channel through other means below. So this is your new Fuhrer, who is probably always going to be known as just the new guy, the new CEO, because he doesn't quite have the style of the old one, Jack. We start our own platforms, and then Google and Apple and PayPal and the banks ban us. It's like people seem to be terrified of free speech. Well, some people are more terrified of free speech than others. Anyway, so Twitter takes the mask off. Holy cow, they take the mask off. No more private pics, but the wording is ephemeral, amorphous, loose. What does this mean? Nobody knows, and it doesn't matter. It's just words. It will coalesce into a crystal when they want it to coalesce, and it will go back into a cloud. I should have said something like changing state of matter. When they need it to go back into a cloud, it's like a tornado. It will just touch down on the ones they want it to touch down on. And yeah, just quinkedinkly, they're all going to be like Jack Posobiec or Cernovich or all these, like, anyone who's pushing out a narrative that, and I know people hate Cernovich. He's just the only example I could think of. I'm not on Twitter, so I don't spend a whole lot of time there. It's gonna boil down to only being enforced against the right wing. Andy Ngo, or Andy No, he posts Antifa pictures of riots, and he posted their mugshot afterwards at home. The pictures of Antifa mugshots, like, you look at these guys and these gals, and you realize, like, a lot of them are, I mean, they fit the bill of useful idiots. The Untermensch. Like, there's a lot of mental illness and drug addiction in Antifa mugshots. I mean, you can just look at these people and go, oh, this is some horrific child abuse coupled with chemical dependency issues. Like, these people should be institutionalized, not on the streets. That kind of stuff should be public information, but the rules are not going to be applied equally. They weren't under Jack Dorsey, and they're not going to be under this new puppet. The problem for the left with social media is that 99% of the destruction is coming from Antifa and BLM. The normie in Normistan is seeing that mostly peaceful burnings of buildings, but they also see lootings and the invisible people attacking Asians or otherwise doing malum in se acts. But that runs counter to the Soros narrative of white people bad. They're not. They're awesome, as you are all well aware. The problem actually is that the people of the light are too awesome. There just aren't enough bad acts on their part to fit the bill. It seems like every bad act is a Jussie Smollett situation, who's on trial now, along with Ghislaine Maxwell, which not exactly being ignored. It's just they don't get the recirculation that they should. Anyway, so Twitter, YouTube, Facebook are all run by parasites who probably eat babies in satanic rituals. I don't know if YouTube allows me to call them snake people anymore, but it's a pretty good way to view them. There are about 100 big names on the right who challenge the narrative. Project Veritas, Andy No, are guys who come, but they come with receipts that document the news with evidence. This didn't start with canceling and censoring Alex Jones. It was never going to end with him. The puppet masters want the information to come from a few controlled sources, from a hierarchy with filtration along the way. The news must be 100% anti-white, anti-nation, pro-global monopoly. The funny thing about YouTube is it's, well, I mean, the name itself, right? It started as a place for you to post your zoo videos, if you remember that one, and whatever you want to post. Individuals posted their own content. And sure, some people turned it into a career, but then Google bought them and they slowly got rid of the far right, and then they just started getting rid of, like, unpolitically correct comedians and, like, channels that covered SJWs. Like, 90% of those channels are gone now or demonetized, so there's no point. Because even as cringy as SJWs are, to lampoon them goes against the narrative, because you're making fun of the left, and the left wing does not like that. And then they started to get rid of the moderate right guys. They started to get censored and then kicked off, and it's like, you can go watch Salty or Sticks, Hex and Hammer's videos. I preferentially will tune into them because I know they're not going to have any advertisements on their videos. And that's just a step before getting kicked off. And you're like, what has Sticks said that is so objective that he needs to be demonetized? Like, he loosely covers politics from like a center position. There's a large chunk of YouTube videos from the old days that YouTube has just nuked. They are gone forever, which is kind of weird, historically speaking, to delete little pieces of digital history. The same thing happens with Twitter. The site is full of dead links and suspended accounts. You can go through hot button issues from like a year ago and you look through it and it's like, oh, half this content is missing. That's another weird thing. It's like, I don't know. That's a little too 1984 for me. It's not your social media, it's corporate social media. For YouTube, it's easier to leave because Odysee and Bit Chute work very well, especially Odysee. That's kind of the new growing platform. But Twitter is an addiction for people because the mainstream media is on Twitter. People didn't want mainstream media on YouTube. They wanted alt media. So YouTube is changing into just CNN, the White House, makeup, and cat tutorial videos. I think I meant makeup tutorial videos. I don't think you can teach a cat anything. But people were on Twitter because they wanted all viewpoints. But even in the Jack era, they would shadow ban right of center voices. But now the new guy is just outwardly saying that they are turning Twitter from a social media platform into a narrative company. But here's where things get tricky, constitutionally speaking, for a private platform that the U.S. government de facto uses in their official capacity. Twitter is the new town square. If 100% of the mainstream media and government is on Twitter, then its claim that the First Amendment doesn't apply is asinine. If free expression doesn't apply where the government and media is holding discourse, where they are shaping the path of the republic, then the First Amendment is meaningless. Your Constitution is lighthearted and frivolous and needs to be replaced. Your right to redress of grievance, to interact with your representatives in the new town square, trump their claim of private company protections. Think of this. If Twitter shadow bans someone running for office, they simply won't get elected. There is no equivalent alternative. Twitter will determine all future elections, which should terrify you because people who run the media and social media, like I said, they have forked tongues. The media and government aren't doing anything about this very serious issue because they've been subverted and infested with brain worms and vermin. The media is anti-free expression. Even the ACLU is against civil liberties for the right wing. They openly advocate censorship and doxing of dissident voices. The media is proudly against assembly and free expression for right of center voices. The media has been changing for decades and it has not been fun to watch. From what I've seen since 9/11 was stage 1, 2016 was stage 2, and the 2020 BLM riots was stage 3. They're not the media anymore, which is why people went to the alt media that was on YouTube and Twitter years ago. I saw a graph of the volume of coverage of the Trayvon versus the Trayvon Zimmerman coverage. They compared CNN and Fox and MSNBC. CNN covered it 43 times as often as Fox. It was a massive story for CNN. But why? One guy deletes another guy in Chicago, Memphis, Philadelphia, St. Louis. That happens every day. Lately, in 2021, it's been happening twice a day in these major cities. Only the local news covers the daily inner-city deletions. Why would CNN cover it, all while they ignore all the other crimes? Because they thought they could use it to push propaganda. They lightened his photo and called him a white Hispanic. He's not white, not by any stretch of the imagination. There's no way you would never see him as that. He doesn't see himself as that. Before this happened, he never referred to himself. And if you look at a picture of him, you're like, oh, okay, he's not. He's some mixed Mexican, technically, what is it, mezito? But he's not European. CNN wasn't fooling anyone, but they had a narrative to push that this was their man bites dog scenario of malum in se acts for the someone who's not supposed to behave this way. CNN is owned by anti-whites. They will gladly go into bankruptcy pursuing their anti-white hatred. Their money, the money, really is not important to the media or social media, and like convincing the normie of that is a trick. These are the people who can always get more investment capital. They call up their financiers, and a new propaganda springs to life, a new platform springs to life. They never run out of money because they control the flow of it. Here's a little algorithm avoiding hint. Epstein, Maxwell, the blackmail situation with the hidden cameras, situations like that, that brings in a lot of excess cash that gets funneled back into propaganda that is, one, anti-white, and two, anti-nation. This is an ideology akin to a religion, this religion of global monopoly. The mainstream media and social media are just facets of the same Luciferian crystal. The goal is to shine a sinister light onto the world and to destroy it, or rather control it by keeping the people fighting while they seize control. The tall grass theory. They really are the worst people on earth. They want to be the new NGO authoritarian dictators, unelected but more powerful than any president. If you control financial institutions, a movement of money, the media, big tech, and you brainwash kids into Bolshevism through the school system, then you rule the world. They won't stop unless we stop them, but it takes action. Taking over city councils, school boards, homeschooling, and getting on alt tech. Anyway, like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope this makes it past the algorithm, and I'll see you guys on Odysee and Bit Chute.